In 2024, Las Vegas launched a $40 million immersive show at the heart of the Strip, designed by the same producers behind some of the city's biggest hits. Yet, barely a year later, it is shutting down, not for technical failure, but because audiences simply never came. How can a team with a proven track record and resources most artists only dream of deliver a project that by every metric should have been a sure thing and still end up losing millions? The answer reveals what is really shifting beneath the neon glow and why Vegas may never return to the overcrowded playground it once was. The transformation began with a blank slate, an aging sportsbook perched above the casino floor at the Ling Q, long stripped of its former buzz. In its place, construction crews set out to build something entirely new, a sprawling, immersive venue meant to evoke the pulse of the 1970s New York. Walls came down, concrete was poured, and the old betting windows vanished. The blueprint called for an open dance floor, state-of-the-art lighting rigs, and a sound system powerful enough to shake the rafters. At the core of the $40 million outlay was the venue itself. Architects and designers reimagined every square foot, layering in subway tile, neon signage, and a stage built for both spectacle and audience participation. The goal was to transport guests into a disco-era fantasy, blurring the line between performer and spectator. That meant not just building a theater, but creating an environment where the audience would be on their feet, moving with the show, surrounded by actors and dancers weaving through the crowd. The investment did not stop at the main room. An entire ecosystem of food and beverage options was woven into the space. Diner Ross Steakhouse, just steps from the dance floor, offered a retro take on classic New York dining, while the 99 Prince Bar and Glitter Loft lounges promised cocktails and conversation before and after the show. Each venue required its own build-out, full kitchens, custom bars, themed decor, and separate entrances, all connected to the immersive experience but able to operate independently. Every detail, from the subway turnstile at the entrance to the disco ball overhead, reflected the push for authenticity and scale. The project demanded a level of capital commitment more common to major Strip headliners than to experimental theater. By the time the doors opened in September 2024, the former sportsbook was unrecognizable, a multi-zone entertainment complex carved out of old bones, ready for thousands of guests each week. The physical transformation was complete, and with $40 million spent, the question shifted from what was built to whether it could ever pay for itself. Spiegelworld's reputation in Las Vegas was built on a string of crowd-pleasing hits that seemed to thrive on risk. The company founder, Ross Mollison, had already delivered two of the Strip's most resilient shows, Absinthe at Caesar's Palace and Atomic Saloon Show at the Venetian. Both were known for their blend of spectacle and humor, and for a willingness to push boundaries in how audiences experienced the show. Absinthe in particular carved out a 10-year run by turning a tent on a casino plaza into the hottest ticket in town, while Atomic Saloon brought immersive chaos to a replica Wild West saloon. Spiegelworld's approach was hands-on and unconventional, with Mollison often describing his work as a response to overly polished and impersonal mega-productions that once dominated the Strip. With Disco Show, Spiegelworld set out to capture the spirit of the 1970s New York nightlife, but through a format that broke from Vegas tradition. Instead of rows of seats and a passive audience, the show placed guests in the middle of a dance party, led by a cast of performers who mingled, danced, and pulled guests into the story. The creative team drew inspiration from the legendary discos of Manhattan, places like Studio 54 and Paradise Garage, where the line between performer and patron did not exist. At the heart of the experience was Ake Blomqvist, a character based on a real-life Finnish dance instructor, known for his infectious energy and crowd-leading moves. Blomqvist, both a guide and a performer, became the face of disco show's participatory style, teaching dance steps and encouraging even the most hesitant guests to join in. The project's pedigree made it look like a safe bet on paper. Spiegelworld's track record with immersive, irreverent productions had already shifted the Strip's entertainment landscape, and Caesars Entertainment, as co-investor and host, brought deep pockets and a central location. The creative team emphasized authenticity, hiring choreographers and designers with backgrounds in both Broadway and club culture. Early marketing leaned into nostalgia, promising a night of glitter, funk, and freedom, an escape from the everyday, wrapped in disco beats and neon lights. Industry insiders saw the format as a natural evolution for Vegas, where audience participation and Instagram-ready moments had become the norm. The show's design, with its open dance floor and roaming cast, echoed trends in immersive theater that had found success in cities like New York and London. The expectation was that a city built on spectacle would embrace a new kind of show, one that did not just break the fourth wall, but erased it entirely. By the time Disco Show opened, anticipation ran high. The credentials were strong, the creative vision clear, and the market seemed ready for something bold. Yet as the weeks unfolded, the reality inside the theater proved far more complicated. Disco Show's run on the Strip can be traced with a handful of dates and a steady, unchanging rhythm. Previews began in late August 2024, with the official opening on September 7, 2024. From the start, the show settled into a 5-nights-a-week schedule, offering 75-minute dance party performances that blurred the line between audience and cast. Each week, the lights came up on the same immersive set, and each week the calendar ticked forward. But the hoped-for surge in attendance never materialized. Through the fall and winter of 2024, the show kept its pace. Even as other Strip venues shifted schedules to capture holiday crowds or major events, Disco Show maintained its routine. There were no sudden expansions, no added matinees, and no reports of sold-out nights that might have signaled a breakout hit. Instead, the performance count remained steady, and week after week, the show played to a room that rarely reached capacity. The show continued into 2025, but the pattern held. Industry insiders noted that the performance schedule, 5 nights each week, never wavered, even as ticket sales lagged behind projections. There were no public announcements about performance cuts or dark weeks, except for a brief pause during the Formula One period when the creative team made minor changes. Otherwise, the calendar was a straight line from opening night to the final curtain. The end came quietly. On a Sunday night in December 2025, Spiegelworld issued a late-night press release announcing that the final performance would take place on January 3, 2026. There was little fanfare, no extended farewell, and no lead-up campaign to drive last-minute sales. The closure was handled with the same low profile that had characterized much of the show marketing. On January 3, 2026, the doors closed for the last time, just 16 months after the grand opening. The surrounding bars and restaurants continued on, but for Disco Show, the timeline had run its course. It was steady, brief, and ultimately finite. On a Thursday night in October, a bartender at Glitterloft leaned against the counter, scanning the empty dance floor. The music pulsed, lights spun overhead, but only a handful of guests circled in the glow. Staff traded glances, quietly counting heads. In the early weeks, the cast had included a drag performer named Mother, who greeted guests with a flourish and set the tone for the night. Some visitors, seeing the host in a sequined gown, asked if they had bought tickets to a drag show. Others seemed unsure whether to dance, watch, or wait for something to happen. The creative team tried to clarify the format, but the confusion lingered. During the Formula One break in November, the show quietly removed the drag host, hoping to sharpen its identity. The change was subtle, but the question remained, Who was this show really for? Comps began to show up in employee inboxes. Casino hosts started handing out pairs of tickets to regulars and high rollers, hoping to fill the room. On some nights, the guest list felt heavier with comps than with paying customers. One night, a server counted fewer than 50 people on the dance floor, most clustered near the bar. The cast pressed on, weaving through the crowd, coaxing participation. For the staff, the energy in the room was unpredictable. Sometimes a group would catch the spirit, but more often, guests hung back, uncertain how to join in. The immersive, participatory design that worked so well in Spiegelworld's other shows seemed to lose traction here. The open floor, once imagined as a sea of dancing bodies, became a patchwork of empty space. Staffers shared stories in the break room, of guests leaving early, of confusion at the entrance, of nights when the cast outnumbered the audience. The show's promise of a wait-unseated disco party clashed with what Vegas crowds expected. In the end, the gap between vision and turnout became impossible to ignore. For those working the floor, every slow night was a reminder that the numbers were not adding up. Every week, whether the house was full or nearly empty, the costs stacked up with the same relentless regularity. Payroll came first. About $75,000 a week went to performers, creative staff, and musicians. The technical crew and backstage hands added another $37,000, covering lighting, sound, and the constant upkeep required by an immersive, high-touch environment. Front of house and security, including bartenders, ushers, and crowd control, brought the total up by $40,000 more each week. Overhead, powering the lights, running the air conditioning, maintaining the sound system, handling insurance and licensing, cost another $28,000. Even after opening, the marketing budget held steady at around $50,000 a week, trying to keep the show in the minds of tourists and locals alike. All told, the estimated weekly operating cost landed near $230,000 before factoring in any share paid to the casino or additional rent. That number did not change with attendance. If only 50 people showed up, the payroll still had to clear. If the room was packed, the bills stayed the same. The only real variable was how much money came in through ticket sales. Ticket prices started at $69 during previews and rose to $99 for standard admission. With 5 shows a week and a modeled capacity of 500, the math was simple but unforgiving. At the low end, even a sold-out week at $69 per ticket could not cover the weekly burn. At the higher price, the show needed near-perfect attendance just to break even. Every comped ticket or discount chipped away at the margin, making the gap harder to close. An independent CFO looking at the numbers would see little room for error. The structure was built for scale, but the costs kept running, whether the disco floor was buzzing or nearly silent. In Las Vegas, that kind of weekly cash drain can turn a bold experiment into a short-lived memory. A ticketing analyst ran the numbers on Disco Show's business model, and the results were stark. With a reported weekly operating cost of $230,000, the show faced a simple but brutal equation. 5 performances per week, a modeled capacity of 500, and ticket prices that started at $69 during previews, later settling near $99. Even with every seat sold at the highest price. The math barely worked. Factor in the casino's cut, often 15 to 25% of gross ticket revenue, and the break-even line kept slipping further away. At a $90 average ticket, the show needed more than 130% occupancy to cover its bills. That is not just full houses every night, it is an impossible target that no Vegas show could hope to reach. Even at $110 a ticket, the model demanded nearly every spot filled, every show, for months on end. In reality, attendance hovered far below those thresholds, with many nights padded by complimentary tickets or deep discounts. Week after week, the gap between what was needed and what was possible grew wider. The analysts' sensitivity models showed that over the 16-month run, cumulative operating losses likely ranged from $8 to $9 million, on top of the original $40 million sunk into the build-out. This was not a case of a slow start or a single bad quarter. The numbers never penciled out. For all the creative ambition and pedigree behind Disco Show, the math was unyielding. The show's business model demanded a level of audience interest Vegas simply did not have to give. In 2025, Las Vegas saw a 7% decline in visitor numbers compared to the previous year, a drop that rippled through every corner of the Strip. For the team at the Lion King, the reality was clear. Fewer guests meant fewer tickets sold, and the economics of a high-budget immersive show became unsustainable almost overnight. Yet, when the final curtain fell on Disco Show, the surrounding venues, Diner Ross Steakhouse, 99 Prince, and the Glitterloft bars, remained open. This was not an accident or a matter of sentiment. It was a calculated response to a changing market. A tourism economist from UNLV points to the broader trend. As overall visitation softens, properties are forced to rethink how they use their space. The days of betting everything on a single blockbuster show are fading. Instead, casinos and entertainment groups look for ways to keep revenue flowing, even as the crowds thin. In practice, that means building venues with modular designs, spaces that can host a show 1 month, then pivot to nightlife, private events, or pure food and beverage the next. For the Lion King, the key investment in food and beverage was not just a side bet, it was an insurance policy. The property's revenue manager explains that the steakhouse and bars operate under separate profit centers, allowing them to continue unaffected by the show's closure. This separation is written into the operational agreements, making it possible to shut down the underperforming show without disrupting the more stable dining and bar business. Legal experts familiar with Strip entertainment deals note that these contracts often include performance clauses. If ticket sales fall below a certain threshold, the producer or property has the option to exit the show component while keeping the rest of the venue active. Although the specifics of the Spiegelworld and Caesars deal are not public, the outcome fits this pattern. So while the lights dimmed on Disco Show, the hum of conversation and the clink of glasses carried on next door. The venue did not become a ghost town, it adapted. In a market where visitor numbers can swing by hundreds of thousands in a year, this kind of flexibility is not just smart, it is essential for survival on the modern Strip. Behind every dazzling Strip marquee, the math is changing. As Vegas leans into high-priced spectacle, fewer travelers fill the seats, and industry data shows no sign of a turnaround for 2025. The real gamble now isn't on what can be built, but who will come. In a city built on risk, even the surest bet can go empty. What do you think? Is Vegas overplaying its hand?